I want to go through the list, and you guys just raise your hand when I say your name. And then if you have something in your glass in front of you, tell you what it is, because I have an interesting and I want to go I have an interesting one. I want to go at the end. So Aaron from Ecoria, hope I said that right. Thank you. And Jeremy Leffert from CROMA VERA. And Rachel Goffinet from Dunites. And Kobe Parker Garcia from El Lugar. And Trish and Bill Kesselring from Peloton. And I'm going to throw out there, Bill managed this vineyard for 4 years. So when we start talking about the vineyard, maybe you can pipe in and correct me or steer me in the right direction. And then Stephen Ross, there's my beloved Stephen Dooley. So I don't know if you guys are so inclined to put your websites into the chat, then other people can see where it is. I think most people know how to find websites by Googling it, but you never know, you can put it in the chat. And so I have a few little vineyard facts to throw out there. The vineyard is 92 acres. Most of it is Pinot and Chard. That makes up about 66 acres. And then the Syrah, Albarino, Pinot Gris, and the weeest bit of Viognier and Barbera. I don't know who gets the Barbera, but it's way back there in the corner. It's 1.8 miles from the Pacific Ocean at its closest point and 2.45 at the farthest point. So I would venture to say, with having no facts in front of me, that this could be the closest vineyard to the Pacific on the Central Coast. Anyone? Bill, would you say so?
Derbyshire is a little closer, but.
Oh,
I think he's muted.
Yeah, sorry. I haven't measured yet. The Shea Trilogy Homes vineyard is going to be a close competitor. I need to measure that.
Oh, in Napomo.
Yeah.
Yeah. We let the computer do the walk-in on the measurement for this one, preparing for the call. So I want to start with the wee little production of Viognier, because I had no idea that that was out there, Aaron. So how'd you find it? And tell us about like cool climate Viognier.
So I pretty much have Bill to thank for my involvement in this vineyard. He was managing a little vineyard up in Cambria I used to work with for years. And he told me when he was managing, this is in 2012, he said, hey, I got this really cool vineyard basically in Pismo Beach that's pretty cool. You should check it out. And so I went down there and looked at it with him, and I was really excited about it. And again, I kind of have, I pretty much have Bill to thank for the Viognier as well, because he didn't have it sold. He said, hey, I got this Viognier, and there's only 1.2 acres, and it's really, I don't even know why they planted it, but, you know, I recall him saying it was kind of like a test. They weren't really sure if it would ripen very well there, and so they said they just put it in this weird corner, and do you want it? And I think the first year out of the 1.2 acres, we got like 3/4 of a ton or something like that. It was nothing. And, you know, I made it almost like out of a weird, like spite thing, because I actually don't like Viognier. So but I thought to myself, I don't think that this Viognier is going to be like any other Viognier. And I was watching the chemistry, and I was watching how the acidity was so high in the Viognier. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I mean, Viognier isn't a varietal that doesn't have very much acid. So I saw the numbers and I went, this is going to be cool. And so we made it in 2012, the first year it produced a crop, and it was stellar. And so we've been making it, and I've controlled the block since 2012. So no one else, as far as I know, no one else makes the Viognier, because they pick it all from me. We get about 3 tons an acre, 2.5 tons an acre, 3 tons an acre. So we get, you know, about 140 cases a year, 150. And it's just really different than most Viognier. It's really racy. It's really acidic. It's much more tropical than it is like stone fruit driven, like typical Viognier. And typically Viognier is pretty oily and doesn't have a lot of acidity. This is not oily at all. It's actually quite lean, and it has a ton of acidity. So it's this sort of counter to your standard Viognier, and that's really fun for me. It really stands on its own, and it shows the site. It's so counter to the varietal that the site really comes through, you know, because that's what's making the wine that way. So that's cool.
We also found that vineyard through Bill. So I wonder how many people here, Bill, are like people that you brought into this vineyard.
You know, yeah, that was a long time ago. I know we started making wine there. I know Kinsey at the time was making wine. Russell from Herman Story made wine off of it when I was out there. I don't really remember, or I don't know, haven't kept track of who's still out there, obviously, since we're not there. But yeah, it's a very unique site, and I know a lot of people were pretty excited to make some wine off of it.
Which reminds me, I forgot to say what is in my glass because I'm so excited about it. And it's a 2012 Grenache. We made a Grenache from that. We don't make Grenache from there anymore, but I had to go up the ladder to get this one, and it's a good one. It's held up. So let's talk about Syrah, because we have several of you guys make Syrah from there, and I think I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's like 5 to 8 acres or something of Syrah out there. Not that much. Let's start with you, Kobe. Why do you love Spanish Springs and the Syrah that you make from there?
I mean, to me, it's just like a perfect example of non-California style Syrahs. It's definitely it's a little bit leaner out there. I think the wines remind me a lot of Northern Rhone a lot. So, you got these wines that really thrive off of, like Aaron was saying, that vineyard thrives off of acidity. That's like kind of its like benchmark is it's an acid driven site. So if you don't like wines with high acid, you probably don't like Spanish Springs. So I like the freshness that the wine, that the Syrahs, how it's grown out there, and how the wine evolves, especially, 16, 17 months in barrel. So 2015 was our first vintage out there with Spanish Springs. And when I was at Claiborne, we made Syrah from the 2 other blocks. So there's 4 different blocks out there. There's 4 different clones. It's like 5 or 8 acres total. So it's really small. I think they're planning a little bit more Syrah out there, either last year or during this year. So yeah, there's not a lot of Syrah out there, but it's a fabulous site. Like, I've been getting more and more Pinot out there. But at Claiborne, we made a lot of Grenache out there as well. So it's definitely a site that thrives off of those cooler climates. So.
And Rachel, I'm coming to you next. So Dooley's is a small brand owned by Rachel and her husband Tyler, and you guys don't make a whole lot of things, but Spanish Springs Syrah is one of them. And how did you guys find it?
Yeah, so kind of when we started our brand, we're really focused on the kind of cool climate coastal sites, and we live in Pismo Beach, and it's less than 2 miles away from our house. And kind of how Aaron and Kobe were saying, it's just a high acid site, and the Syrah that we make from it, just really textural, salinity kind of driven on the palate. Yeah, we do 2 clones. We do the Alban Syrah and the 383, and it's kind of just like kind of the backbone of our brand. We started out with just 1 wine in 2015, the Syrah from Spanish Springs, and we've expanded from there. So we do just our traditional Syrah, and in 2018 we started making a Syrah sans soufre, which is basically just a Syrah with no sulfur added throughout the whole fermentation process. And so that's bottled earlier, but with the high acid, Kobe's drinking it right now.
I didn't open it. That's for another night.
Oh, okay, right on. So just with the higher acid, we were, felt like taking that risk to, not add any sulfur, and it's, a really expressive wine that kind of, changes each time, you kind of open it. And yeah, we love that site.
And for those of us on the call that are not from San Luis Obispo or Pismo, tell us about the name Dooley's.
So Dooley's, we were really inspired by just the dunes and any dunes just in San Luis Obispo County. The Dooley's were a group of kind of like bohemians that lived in the San Luis Obispo kind of Oceano dunes in the Depression era in the 1920s and 30s, kind of like an eclectic group of like free thinkers, authors, poets, artists, and they actually published a kind of somewhat of a magazine called the Dune Forum And I think that the editor, or it was led up by Gavin Arthur, who was just, I think, one of the president's grandson. I can't remember the relation, but it was kind of like an interesting history there with them, and we were inspired by them and just decided to call our brand Dew Nights.
Dew Nights. The Dew Nights was like a Hooverville with really great real estate.
Yeah.
Basically. Sounds like.
Absolutely.
And then aromatic whites. A lot of us have Albarino and Pinot Gris, and that is part of what Gus. So you have some Albarinos in the store there. Let's talk like those varieties. I think are really exciting on their own, and this vineyard is just pretty spectacular. Pinot Grigio. Some of us call it Pinot Grigio and Pinot Gris, and then there's the Albarino. I guess the Viognier is also an aromatic white, but I wanted to start with that one because it was so tiny. So let's talk about the other ones, and you winemakers can just unmute yourself and tell us about your winemaking on, Steve, I'll pick on you first. Tell us about your winemaking on the Albarino that Stephen Ross makes.
I will, but I want to ask a question to Rachel. What, that your Syrah without sulfur, I mean, do you notice differences in that wine? I mean, I don't know if you did a side by side with sulfur. I mean, we've been doing that more with Pinot Noir, and we noticed that without sulfur, the color is better, and actually it's preserved very well. I mean, as long as you're in a cool cellar and clean barrels, I think it can work, and it's good marketing.
Yeah, the color is definitely one of the main differences. I feel like on the kind of more traditionally made our Syrah, the colors are more kind of red, deeper purple, like more ruby red. And then also it's, like you said, it's just like kind of like just more expressive right off the bat, and just really like the interesting nose and the palate. It's kind of like, I want to say more crunchy, but whereas kind of our wine, that's our traditional Syrah, it's like a little kind of more structural on the palate.
What's that high acid from the vineyard? I mean, you see it in all varieties. We certainly see that in Albarino, and I'm sure, Bill, that's how we got introduced to the vineyard when you were farming it. And we've worked with Pinot Noir, with Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio, but we're focused on Albarino now, and we love it. I mean, it's a very expressive, aromatic white wine. The acidity and minerality is really awesome in that wine. It's actually also kind of a sort of an easy wine to make in that it doesn't have high requirements for nutrients, or doesn't have high protein or anything like that. So we make our wine in a very straightforward, kind of modern way, and then it's just whole cluster press juice going into stainless steel, and then it's fermented and aged in stainless. Then we try to bottle kind of early, as in February or March. But we love the expression, the tropical kind of citrusy fruit and the minerality, and of course the high acid. So we like it.
And I'm going to throw out a question because for Jeremy, actually, CROMA VERA is one of the first to embrace Albarino, I think, around here. And you guys do make interesting varieties in general. And I know we're talking about Spanish Springs, but you're unusual in the varieties that you make for San Luis Obispo or for south of the grade. How did you guys fall in love with the Albarino from Spanish Springs?
Well, Mindy and I met in 2014 when she was just tossing around the idea of starting the brand. And that was the first vintage I made Albarino from Spanish Springs. And I've always been a kind of fan of Spanish wines and Spanish varietals. And that was Mindy's, first kind of love and entrance into the wine world. So that was kind of the initial focus of the brand. And I was making the Albarino for someone else in 2014 and was able to convince Scott Williams to just sort of let me move that contract over to CROMA VERA. And then our kind of journey with Spanish Springs began there. And it's a fun site. I love it. Beyond CROMA VERA, I make other wines from that vineyard, and it's just special. And when I came to town in 2007, my wife and I moved up here. I remember driving on Price Canyon when that vineyard was going in, and was just, wow, I wanted it for some reason. And anyway, I called Scott one day and he said I could get some Albarino from it, and have slowly been adding, you know, arrows in my quiver with it. And it's been a fun few years. And like, you know, Steve was mentioning, I started off fermenting Albarino in 100% stainless, super cold. And then over the years, I've kind of shifted and putting the juice in a mix of stainless steel drums and neutral barrels. I found that these smaller ferments, you know, like a barrel, they tend to get a little warmer, and I'm gonna pump more thiols and get some more tropics coming out of the aromatics of the wine. And then also that temperature really helps with some like layers and texturing. So that's what Mindy and I have been doing the last 2 vintages, and I'm really pleased with the results.
And Peloton, I know you guys make 2 Albarinos, and I don't have the facts about all of them, but does your Spanish Springs Albarino, is it all stainless, or is it in a little bit of barrel as well?
Whatever's available.
Yeah, I love honest answers about being in the wine business.
No,
Like,
a little bit of both, because yeah, we make Albarino from Spanish, and then also a little bitty vineyard over called Squire Canyon, just right outside of Avila Beach, right next to Sino Lavalier's vineyard. And it's always interesting to me, the 2 very different Albarinos, even though they're 2 miles apart probably as a crow flies. So very, very interesting, different profiles.
yeah.
I have a question for Bill.
Yeah.
So, you know where the Albarino is. It's kind of a lower part of that vineyard. I mean, it's right down at the bottom of the canyon. And
Yes.
I don't spend every day in the summer out there, I admit. But is it a little less windy and maybe a little warmer down there, which is good because it's a very cool climate. So does it maybe get more sunshine? Or, I mean, I know it's this sandy loam stuff, and there's not like a lot of fertility in the soil. The plants aren't huge. The crop's not huge either, which I think is good.
Yeah, no, definitely less in that bottom corner down by Price Canyon Road, or you know the street. So you're not up on the hillside. You're kind of in a combination interesting soil where it's, you know, above there is a little bit. There's some areas of sand, and then there's also some areas of really heavy weathered shale. And then right down there, you kind of have a combination of all 3 in some backhoe pits. We saw sand, shale, and clay loam all in the same block, which is kind of interesting to see all that all those different formations in one location. So, but yeah, with the swale it's in, it's definitely a little bit more protected. It was also one of the coldest places on the ranch in wintertime. And we would always, you know, it was not abnormal to see low 20s down there when we were in frost season.
I remember coming home from dinner one night, and he said he wanted to go pop into the vineyard to check temperatures. And at the freeway, it was 32, and we went half a mile to the vineyard. I don't even think it's a half a mile to the vineyard. And it dropped down to 27, 28 near the Albarino block. And then we went up to the top of the hill, and it rose back up to like 34.
Yeah, I have pictures of that vineyard with icicles about 6 inches long hanging off 100% of the wires across the whole ranch.
It looks like a winter wonderland.
Well, you guys are the cyclists, not me, but in a prior life when I was, we called it Ice Canyon.
Yes.
Instead of Price Canyon. Yeah, I don't know if that's like a normal thing, but
Yeah, no, it'd be warm on the beach and freezing in there.
yeah. And I tend to tell people that it's just outside the pervasive fog belt of Pismo, right?
Yes.
Like during the day, Pismo Beach can be socked in all day long, but it pretty much always clears up just that far, doesn't it?
Yep.
Nice. And then, Aaron, anything you want to say about I think you make the Pinot Gris, don't you, from there? Do you do similar to the Viognier with stainless and?
We actually treat the wines super different. So the style for the Gris is try to do something that's a little bit more true to Alsace and something with a lot more richness and texture. So typically if you're tasting a lineup of wines, the Gris would be the leaner of the wines and the Viognier would be the heavier of the wines, but my wines are actually reversed. So my Viognier is leaner than my Gris. I have the very, very top hillside rows of the Pinot Gris, so like the sort of the highest spot where the soils are the thinnest. The canopy goes from being, you know, maybe 3 feet tall down below to like about 2 feet or 18 inches tall at the top. The yields are low. And because the shoots are really small up at the top, you get a lot more sunlight on the fruit and the Pinot Gris up at the top. And that does a couple of things. It definitely changes the aromatic profile of the wine, but it also helps to bleach the color. So there's actually less color in the fruit that comes from the hillside than there is down below where there's more shade. The more shade you tend to give Pinot Gris, it tends to have actually be darker. And so for us, we do 12 hours of skin contact. So it's destemmed and it rests on the skins for 12 hours. So the juice is actually pretty pink. If we got lower fruit, I think it would actually be even more pink. It would be pretty dark red. And then we ferment it in barrel. About 30% of it is once filled French oak. So there is an oak profile on the wine. We pick it pretty ripe. We're the last ones to pick it every year because we want something that's a little bit richer. And the wine does not lose acidity because that site doesn't lose acidity. It holds acidity like forever. And then we ferment it and age it in barrel for about 6 months. And then we do lees stirring or bâtonnage where we stir the lees up in the barrel. We do that twice a week for 5 months. So we do it on Mondays and Thursdays for 5 months. So we really build a lot of texture in the wine. We don't put it through mallow. We do ferment it cold. We don't ferment it warm. We ferment it below 62. But we do try to build richness through bâtonnage, build richness through a little bit more ripeness, and build richness through skin contact. And eventually the wine, when it's bottled, is actually no longer pink because the bâtonnage helps pull the color out, but it's usually pink for the majority of its life. And so those of you that are watching that don't know, Pinot Gris or Pinot Grigio is actually not a white grape, it's a red grape. It's not a black grape like Pinot Noir, but it actually is red. So you can make basically like a very light red wine or like a dark rosé out of it if you so chose to. So pretty different stuff.
I will say I am not a winemaker, in case anybody was confused about that. But when I have seen the Pinot Gris get pressed in the cellar, when I'm like walking through with papers in my hands, I'm like, oh, are you sure this is going to be okay? Because it has a lot of color when it's pressed off.
Yeah, it does.
And it's I would say it's not the prettiest color when you first press it.
And then as far as the Viognier, I guess I never followed up on that, but we do the Viognier in about 60% stainless steel, fermented in stainless steel, aged in stainless steel. And the other 40% is done in neutral French oak. We don't put any oak on that. And we do some of the bâtonnage and lees stirring early on until January, and then we stop it after that. And we let the wine get a little bit reductive and actually keep the barrels closed and try to get it a little bit more in a reductive state. To keep it a little bit fresher. So a little bit pretty different style from the Gris.
I have to get some of that.
Aaron, I have a question. When I tasted your Viognier, for me, a lot of California Viognier is just this overpowering, perfumey wine.
Yeah.
Almost like sitting next to grandma on a hot Sunday in church, you know?
Nothing wrong with that.
Yours isn't. Well, yeah.
You don't like your grandma?
Yours isn't.
Yes, come on.
I don't like my grandma. No, hey, rest in peace. No, but if you didn't, so is the Viognier that you have? Is it more because of the winemaking or because of the site? If you didn't have Spanish Springs Viognier, would you be making Viognier?
Absolutely not. No way. I would not make Viognier if I could, unless it was Spanish Springs Viognier. The things that you described in Viognier, a lot of the reasons that I don't really care for Viognier. I love full body white wines. I mean, I drink a lot of great Chardonnay, but Viognier isn't really. I like Roussanne a lot. I think really textural, rich Roussanne is fantastic. Viognier is not classically California style. Viogniers are not really my thing. So it's totally the site. Everything that you taste in that wine is the site, and I think that that's something that you can say about everything that's made there. I don't know for sure, and I don't want to sound like I'm trying to claim anything, but I make maybe like the most amount of varietals from Spanish Springs. I make Pinot Noir. I have 4 blocks of Pinot Noir. I make Syrah, Grenache, Pinot Gris, Viognier, and Pinot Noir. So I make 5 varietals from Spanish Springs, and every single one of them is awesome. It's like it literally bats at like 100. It's amazing. But every single wine that comes off of there has a very distinctive vineyard signature, which is really cool. And so the fact that it transcends every variety is very clear that it's the site, you know, more than anything. And so, so the Viognier is really expressive. It's definitely not heavy. It's not stone fruited, like I mentioned earlier. It's very exotic. It's very tropical. It's not heavy. It's not, the perfume that it has is much more in this sort of very delicate kind of floral note. And there's a lot of, you know, really high tone kind of citrus and tropical characters, and not, and there's this kind of really cool salinity, which I think a lot of these winemakers would find that it kind of, that also transcends probably a lot of the wines, multiple varietals that are made from there. There's this really cool, whatever you want to call it, people call it minerality, salinity, whatever you want to call it, but this character that sort of comes through all the wines, that's really, really amazing. It's really special. And I have so much fun making the wines from there. And that's not something you can say about every vineyard. But I would say that vineyard, I really enjoy making the wines because they're really responsive to winemaking too. You change things and the wines respond really amazingly, but the site still comes through. If we pick it earlier, we pick it riper, if we do whole cluster, if we just do stem inclusion, if we do, you know, all these different treatments, different wines, they're always good and they're always really interesting. So I like that about it.
Yeah, Aaron, one thing I've always loved about your VO is it's got also this like candied ginger kind of quality on the nose, which is cool. And it's neat you mentioned that because I agree with you on kind of the, you know, soul of Spanish Springs coming through. And there's very few vineyards out there that trump winemaking.
Yep.
And that's one of them. And I think that's kind of a good marker of a really special site where it doesn't matter what you do to it. You can't hide the fact that it's from Spanish Springs.
And Steve said that it's kind of, the wines are kind of easy to make. And I think maybe what he's implying is that the fruit's great. It always makes great wine no matter what varietal is, and the site transcends. So it is kind of easy to make them. And it makes it fun because you can kind of play with it a little bit, and you don't really think you're going to screw it up. You're like, oh, I can kind of do whatever, and it's probably going to be good either way. You know? Well,
it's pretty tough to screw up wines that come in with those pHs, you know?
Well, let's talk about Pinot Noir because we all love Pinot Noir, I think. And Peloton, you guys have been making Pinot Noir from there since day one that it was available, I would guess, or available to you. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, there's just a lot of unique soils. Again, that site like that where you've got heavy clay soils to fractured, just kind of gnarly, shaly, broken stone soils, sandy. And then you got all the different clones, all the Dijon clones mixed all over. Kind of like Aaron was saying, there's some blocks where when we took it over, the canopies were 6 inches tall and kind of a mess just because the soils were really difficult to farm out there. It does not fit well to irrigate everything like crazy, like some of the other Edna Valley ranches where you just put tons of water on, get a 6-foot canopy and harvest 6 tons the acre. It just
want that vineyard.
So similar to probably a vineyard Steve's familiar with, it's, you got sand and clay and rock, you got all sorts of options. At Stone Corral, it's kind of similar, but even more exaggerated there at Spanish Springs. So it just was very interesting farming standpoints of literally every single block, and even every block we had it broken into, sub blocks, and irrigations broken out. We had probably 3 full-time irrigators for 90 acres, which I've never done that in my entire life. Because it took so much manpower to irrigate that thing properly so that you weren't over irrigating some Pinot blocks and not under irrigating others. But
is there any above ground water out there? Creeks? Is there any like above ground natural water out there? Creeks type, or rivulets in our area?
Not too much. Everything out there was just done with reservoirs. And then, they have plenty of water, which is nice. But the interesting thing was just the different expressions from the different clones as you moved around the ranch. It was always kind of some of the most difficult blocks made just some really cool wines, even though they were a pain in the neck to farm.
Do they have all the usual suspects in the Pinot Noir clones, like that we see in the Etna Valley, the Dijon clones that seem to are predominantly planted now?
Yeah, they had the 667, the 777. I think they had 2A. Aaron, I can't remember which block you used. Was it the 2A you used to always get?
Yeah, I still get block 5, 2A. I think Jeremy gets it too.
Yeah, which is one of the prettiest blocks. I think you have like a really good rock combination, stone balance with the heavier soils. Could almost dry farm the block, depending on what kind of crop you're getting off it. But then they had, Swan and some other stuff and some really kind of really fertile soils, which actually was one of my favorites. So it's kind of fun to have that many choices in one vineyard.
Kobe, do you choose your Spanish spring grapes along like clonal lines or block lines, or?
I basically chose blocks by like kind of contour of the vineyard and excuse me, and like in soil, and I mean, part of it is when I went out there, I made Syrah out there before I made Pinot, and when I left Claiborne, I was able to kind of ramp the brand up a little bit more, so I was able to buy more Syrah. So, but from 16, I've been getting Swan in 667, which is down at the bottom, and the last couple of years we've been getting some of that block 5, that 2A stuff, and it's been really neat to like learn the ranch and see the ranch built from back in 08, 09, and just I mean, like everyone said, the wines, they're fun wines to make, and they're always wines that have their own personality compared to everything else in the cellar. I've never blended the wine, but I think it'd be a tough vineyard to blend because it just has so much personality. It's a wonderful vineyard to show by itself for sure.
Nice. And then we didn't hit Chardonnay. Chardonnay is king, and I think Peloton makes Chardonnay. Aaron, did you say that you make Chardonnay from there? No. So Peloton.
That's our 18 Chardonnay. I haven't tried this one yet. We just bottled it.
That's a new label, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. I like it. Yeah.
That's not what we're drinking though. We're drinking the Albarino.
I've been calling Albarino the wine of captivity for COVID-19. There is a lot of Albarino being consumed because you can start at 3. You don't have to wait till 5.
And I don't know if it's my age,
no,
or if it's the wine, but the Spanish Spring Chardonnay has been calling my name since COVID.
Nice. And I'm guessing that Chardonnay has lots of acid and is
we do take it through, well, you guys can talk on this, but we do take it through mallow, and it has like a nice little balance between the two. Neither one kind of overpowers the other one. They're very equally balanced. So it's nice. It kind of feeds to both consumers.
I call it the Spanish Chard for us I call it the converter. We've converted multiple non-Chardonnay drinkers into Chardonnay drinkers.
Excellent.
I had a client come in, a CFO friend of mine come into the wine tasting room the other day. He's like, I hate Chardonnay. Don't even pour it. I charred it. All right, poured it. He bought a bottle and took it home.
No, they took a case.
Excellent.
I like the size and minerality. It's got great body, full width to it. We can put a little bit more oak on it and give it even a little bit more kick. Some years we've put probably a little too much oak on it just for fun. And other years we've held way back or used a little tighter grain barrel, and it seemed to do just beautifully.
That's the thing about Chardonnay, though. There are people who want the oakiest Chardonnay they can get, and then there are other people who think they don't like Chardonnay because they don't like oak. Yep. They really do like the variety. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our 2016, the oak on that is showing a lot. And that's the kind of the tail end of the drought years, and so a lot of stress, big fruit, but as it's aged, it's really showing elegant with the beauty of the oak and the butter. It's really nice. I think we have maybe 5 cases left. We're almost out of it. And we started pouring the 17, and the 17, it started off like a Chablis style with a lot of crispness, and then but now as it aged, the oak's coming out and the butter's coming out, and I don't think it'll ever get where the 16 is, but they're pretty. They're very pretty.
I think Chardonnays are really gorgeous from down here, from this coastal area down here. I think that there's a lot of Chardonnay in the world that turns people off, like that Bill was talking about, but this area does Chardonnay very well. Okay, I'm out of my list of things to bring up. What else should we talk about? I do see, I'm going to call you out, Chris. Chris is a big white wine drinker, and I bet you have a long list of wines written down there to go after today and food to make.
No. I'm actually drinking, what am I drinking? I'm drinking a Spanish Springs Pinot Grigio.
Nice.
Yeah, it just seems like, you know, it's almost 100 degrees. Seems like a good day for it. And basically, it's bad. We're having macaroni and cheese for dinner. I made macaroni and cheese.
Oh,
My
yeah.
husband was craving it, so I made it.
I bet it's the good kind, though. It's not out of the box.
It's not out of the blue box, no.
Yeah.
I was wondering if anybody's, we've done blends of the Syrah and the Grenache off that ranch. Has anybody else done any kind of blending between varietals? Kobe, you have?
Yeah. Grenache and at Claiborne, we did a Syrah, we did Grenache, and we did a Syrah Grenache, like 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
And all the Syrah, we'd always put like 5 to 10% Grenache in, and vice versa with the Syrah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're pretty.
We also do a blend.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What
We also do a blend with the Syrah, and then we blend in the some of the Slide Hill Grenache.
Also cool climate. Very cool climate Grenache. Yeah.
I have kind of a fun project I started from Spanish Springs in 2015, which is I have a tawny port. I'm 10-year-old tawny port that I have in production. That's obviously not going to be bottled for another 5 years, but we started that. We've been doing a Solera style tawny port that we do with the Grenache. That's really cool. The problem with that is that it doesn't oxidize, so it doesn't really. It's been going. It's turning into, it might not work as a 10-year tawny port. It might be have to be like a 20-year tawny port because the acidity is so high. It just doesn't do anything. I mean, for 4 years, it didn't even. I mean, Grenache usually oxidizes pretty fast, and it doesn't do anything. It just sits there.
Aaron, do you have it in a cold cellar?
Yeah. We need to put it out. We need to put it outside in the sun. That's kind of what we need to do. And
we kind of did the same thing with a barrel of Muscatel from 2017. It just sits in the cellar, and it's still kind of a fresh wine, and I like it. I think about putting it out in the sun, Madeira style, and just, or maybe put it in the back of my truck and driving around California a little bit, get a little.
I should strap it to the roof of my winery. That'll do it pretty quickly.
Something like that,
Yeah.
And you get a little balsamic vinegar at the same time.
Yeah, I talked to, I was in Australia last year. I talked to a good friend of mine who's a senior red wine maker for Penfolds, and she was telling me that I need to heat it because they heat all their tawnies up to, they don't heat them like on purpose, but they put them in warm cellars that don't have any cooling, and that's how they get them to tawny quicker.
When I worked at Louis Martini up in Napa, the main part of the building was insulated, but this is in the 70s and 80s. But they had these outside kind of sheds that were not temperature controlled, and that's where all the barrels of port and sherry, dry sherry, tawny port, things like that were all outside, and where it would get pretty warm.
Yeah, I would say I'd move it to my house, but I live in Cayucas and it's pretty cold, so here. So I don't know. I need to find someone's garage in Paso and stuff them in there or something like that.
Yeah, sounds right. That's an ambitious project because, as Steve said, he's making a barrel of Muscatel, and back to that whatever's available comment about the business thing, like there's a lot of cash flow issues in wineries, and making those things that take a long time to make. Whew.
Yeah,
it's keep putting the money in.
Yeah, it's gonna be It's gonna be a long time.
Yeah.
I've
It's more of
got
a
a question.
Yeah.
I had Carol Shelton in my program not too long ago, and she makes a Zinfandel from a vineyard that is at the intersection of the 210 and the 15 freeways down here in Southern California. And I never knew somebody could make wine, close to a freeway. Now, Spanish Springs is close to it's not a housing development. It's a very nice development, right? But there's houses right next to it.
There will be. I don't think there,
there's none yet. There's no
There
houses
will be.
yet. Yeah.
Oh,
no
there's
houses
none.
yet, but they're big lots that are for sale back there, like 10-acre lots or something, aren't they? They're big.
Oh, okay. I thought there were already houses there. Okay.
Yeah.
Bill, aren't the lots, they're sort of over the hill and you can't even see them.
Yeah, you can't even see them. You've got to drive through the vineyard, over the hill, past the high tension lines, and into all the home lots.
No,
So it's
that's
just it's empty lots then, basically.
there's
Right.
no, it's
Acreage,
just,
20 acres.
Yeah.
and the vineyard itself is in a canyon. So there is a road that connects Pismo Beach with the Edna Valley. And so there is traffic on that road, but there are no real houses. I mean, what is to the west, to the ocean side, is this big hill called Pismo Heights. So that kind of keeps the fog at bay. But it's just hillside. There's no real houses that you see when you're at the vineyard. I mean, maybe one or two very far off. But no, it's developed there.
Okay. Well, next time I'm in Pismo, I've got to drive by there because I've never really been by that vineyard, and God, I love it so much.
Well, when you come to San Luis, we'll organize a walk, because I haven't been out there either. I've been by it on Price Canyon a lot of times, but I would really like to do a vineyard walk out there, because I haven't been. It's that part of Price Canyon Road is rugged, so it'd be interesting to walk through there.
It's a beautiful vineyard, really pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We did a winemaker dinner out there a few years ago. We had a chef come out. It was really, really cool. It was really beautiful. People really enjoyed it. We set up, had like 30 people with a big table at the top of the vineyard next to the pond, overlooking you can see the ocean and Pismo Beach from the top. And it was really, really cool. It was really beautiful.
I would like them to put a Spanish Spring sign out front, because that's part of the confusion that is that it says Anza Estates or something, which are the home sites back in there. But really, I mean, 92 acres, that deserves a sign for the vineyard, I feel like.
Yeah, the original name for the track, because I helped them with the marketing of the housing development, was Spanish Springs. And like at the 11th hour, they changed the name because, anyway, whatever. They changed the name.
As they did. Well, we should all drive by there and give it a wave anyway, because it's pretty cool spot. If we can't get to walk in it, we could pretend to look at the home sites, I guess, and drive through the vineyard. But it deserves a lot of love from all of us, because obviously we've invested a lot of our lives into the fruit from there and making wines from there. Does anybody else who's attending have a question? You can unmute yourself and throw it out there, or we will wrap it up. Or Gus, got anything else?
No, I just want to say I love Spanish Springs Vineyard, Edna Valley, and I know not everybody's from Edna Valley, but also Paso Robles, that whole area. Our customers here at the bottle shop really enjoy and love that area. It's a special area. I think it's close to Los Angeles, but not only the proximity, but the quality of wines that are coming from those areas are world class. And I think what I've in the past, what I have a high a majority, not a majority, but I have a lot of wines from that area, Paso and Edna and Santa Rita Hills. And I one time, Doug Marjoram was visiting, and I said, God, I really should have wines from other regions of California. And I do, from Napa and others. But he said, Gus, these are world-class wines. You should not be ashamed. He goes, are they good? Are they good wines? He goes, yeah, they are. They're great wines. He goes, we're producing world-class wines. So you should never, ever be ashamed of having too many wines from that region. And So a lot of our customers, I know Tom and Danielle, Tom and Melissa, they're huge proponents of wines from that region. And when this pandemic is over, or maybe even before the pandemic is over, we'll do a tour up there and go visit all of you, because you guys are really making my job easier to sell wine to everybody else. And once they taste your wines, and CROMA, VERA and Peloton, I would love to bring your wines into our shop too, because what I've heard from everybody else is you guys are just making great wines. So I'd love to represent, have you represented in our shop, and people just love that area. So I'm so happy, because I love that area too. That's one of my favorite areas in California.
And Peloton, Gus was telling me earlier this week that there's a big bike, when normal times, there's a big bike ride that goes through Sierra Madre.
Every weekend.
You guys should
every
get
weekend
into
we
that.
have bicyclists.
Peloton. Yeah, like
Perfect.
Every weekend we have bicyclists come through Sierra Madre. It's a small town. It's a small town between Pasadena and Arcadia. We do not have a stoplight. We only have stop signs in our town. And bicyclists come through and they congregate at Kirstein Court. And one of these days, I'd love to get your wine, go and pour and just start drinking. I'll probably get arrested, but start pouring wine for myself over at Kirstein Court, where these bicyclists are, and say, hey, you should try this wine.
I'll come and I'll hang out with you. We'll do it together.
All right.
And we'll sign him up to ride.
they have their own jerseys. You could do a jersey giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
Make it work. Kobe, were you waving because you wanted to say something?
No, not at all.
Just waving.
I was waving to Tom.
Oh.
Thank you. There you go. Well, Gus, we really appreciate your support and your enthusiasm for this region. So it's great.
Yeah.
Most appreciated.
Yeah.
The Slow Wine Collective. Go ahead.
I love the region so much, and I will do everything to promote this region. And like I say, people have been telling me get together a tour and go on up there, and we'll visit y'all. Okay.
I'm pretty sure everybody on here would love to participate, because the Slow Coast is really made up of a lot of small producers like us who are really committed to making really good wine. And it's hard, to get representation out in the world. And so we really, really value the shops that embrace what we're doing up here. And we would for sure love to do some kind of reception for people that you bring up here. Yeah.
Everybody has a tasting room. It's operating right now during the pandemic?
Yes, you bet.
Yep.
Okay.
We're
Reservations are the big thing, but most tasting rooms are open. We're all outside, but because we're so cool, and the temperature's cool, that we can be outside.
We were hanging out at Aaron's last Thursday.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Great.
Good to see you, Tom.
Yeah, likewise, man. Doing good. It was it was a great time. Operation was awesome, flawless, felt safe, and it was wonderful.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We're going to call it quits here. I hope everybody goes off and drinks something delicious. If it's something that's in front of you, or a new bottle, that would be good. Eat something wonderful. Beer is good. All right. Yeah, let's everybody hold up your whatever it is you got. That's a good idea. I like it. All right, you guys.
Cheers,
go
everyone.
Cheers. Go eat something delicious. You deserve it.
Here's you guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank
Thank you, guys.
Aaron.
Guys.
Thanks,
Happy
everybody.
harvest, everyone.